I want this to be a place where we can have positive conversations and positive interaction. Before I go into my topic for today, I have a confession to make. I have never made a podcast before, so I'm sorry if it isn't very good yet, but hopefully as I keep doing it, my podcast will improve. In today's episode, I will be talking about my spiritual journey. If you like what you hear, please leave a review and or comments, follow my podcast, and tell your friends. I will be adding discussion questions at the end and would love to hear answers. I will also be telling you my answers after I Christian, if you would like someone to talk to, if you have topic ideas, or if you have a review and or comments, you can email me at courtchin@mailbox.org. Now, sit back, get comfortable, and enjoy today's episode. Today, I want to talk to you about my spiritual journey, but before I get into that, I just want to welcome you all to my podcast. This podcast has been an idea/dream of mine since right around when COVID started back in 2020. I had heard an ad about a way to start a podcast when I was listening to music one night. Hearing that ad gave me the idea of starting a podcast, and I eventually started working on it. It has taken me a lot longer to get it started than I had originally hoped, but I'm so excited that I finally have started it now. Now, let's get into my spiritual journey. I got saved in the summer of 2012 at a VBS, and then I was baptized on February 7th, 2016. The thing is, though, I didn't really feel saved until late October of 2018. I think the thing that helped me feel saved was asking God to do open heart surgery on me. What I mean by open heart surgery, in this case, is that I asked God to help me become closer to Him than I had been for the previous 6 years before that. I think it probably took a little time, but doing that helped me so much in my faith. After I did that, I was finally able to understand what I was reading in my Bible, and I was able to grow a lot spiritually. Growing in my faith has helped me to realize that there will be fun times being a Christian, and there will be hard times being a Christian. I've had to deal with many things that have impacted my faith. Some of those things have been good, and some of them have been really hard. A couple of the really hard things I have gone through are changing churches and moving in 2019. Some of the good things are getting to make new friends, getting to go on a missions trip, more on that trip in a bit, having 2 youth groups to go to, new experiences, getting to do Bible studies with friends, a really fun trip to Florida and Kentucky, and then another great family trip to Kentucky. The first thing I want to talk about is the mission conference/trip I went on. That trip took place in June of 2019. I, along with the youth group I was going to at the time, had to raise money in order to afford it. So we helped someone with yard work, we did a car wash, a pie auction, and we also had to send support letters to friends and family to ask for financial aid and prayers. There were 16 of us that went on the trip. We went to Wheaton, Illinois, where we stayed for about a week. It was so fun. We had worship times, prayer times, heard a lot of great messages, learned how to share the gospel, ate together, got to hang out, and we also spent time together as a youth group. We also went into Chicago on 2 different days to share the gospel with the people that were in the city. That was a really busy, amazing, and exhausting week, but it was totally worth it. I definitely recommend doing it. I'm really glad I went, though. I think one of the best parts of that week was getting to grow so much spiritually. We also went into Chicago on 2 different days to share the gospel with people that were in the city. That was a really busy, amazing, and exhausting week, but it was totally worth it. I definitely recommend doing it. I'm really glad I went, though. I think one of the best parts of that week was getting to grow so much spiritually. The second thing I want to talk to you about today is my trip to Florida and Kentucky. This trip was in November of 2018. I feel like I grew a lot spiritually during this trip. This trip was just after I asked God to help me become closer to Him. It was a fantastic trip. My family drove all the way from East Dundee, Illinois, to Orlando, Florida. The long drives were tiring but fun. On the way to Florida, we stayed in a super cool treehouse in Hope Hall, Alabama. While we were in Florida, we went to the beach, Legoland, Gatorland, Wonderworks, and we also went to a fun dinner show. We stayed at a really cool resort with a lot of pools for about a week. After we left Florida, we went to another beach in South Carolina. The beach in Florida was warm, but the one in South Carolina was cold. When we were done at the beach in South Carolina, we went to a coffee shop in North Carolina where we saw a good friend of ours. We got to hang out with him for a while, which was wonderful. We had hot drinks and crepes. Then, we went to Union, Kentucky, where we stayed with friends for about a week, which was fun. I got to hang out with a couple really good friends of mine during that week, and I went out for lunch with one of them too. While we were in Kentucky, we also went to a drive-thru light show, a big store, we hiked a little, we hung out with our friend and his family, we got to go to their church, and we celebrated Thanksgiving with them too. We went home after the week in Kentucky, which was sad, but it felt good to get back home. Those 3 weeks of being gone gave me a lot of time to read my Bible and just work on being close to God. I think my favorite part of that trip was getting to see people I don't usually get to see. The third thing I want to talk about is another trip to Kentucky that my family took. This trip took almost a whole week in June of 2019. I actually got back from this trip less than a week before my mission trip that I mentioned earlier in this episode. We had a family reunion with my dad's side of the family. There were a lot of us. It was my aunts, uncles, cousins, grandparents, and my family. We all hung out, went to the Ark Encounter, went to the Creation Museum. Sometimes we ate with our cousins. We went to our friend's church again and talked a lot, which was fun. We usually talk a lot when we're all together like that, which is really good. It's nice to hang out and talk with family you don't see much. My family and my grandparents stayed in a hotel, and my cousins and their families stayed in a house. I got to have a sleepover with my grandparents in their hotel room all of that week, which was amazing. My grandparents and I talked a lot. I worked on my Bible study homework. I worked on some other things. I went to the mall with a couple of my friends. We got family pictures taken, and my grandma and I made cards too, which was so good. I loved spending all that time with my family and friends that I don't usually get to see a lot. The whole week was wonderful. I think my favorite part was getting to hang out with my whole family. I definitely enjoyed being with everyone that week. The last thing I want to talk about is where I'm at now spiritually. God has led me through a lot of things in my life over the past few years, and it has been a journey. The journey getting to where I am now hasn't always been easy, but it has been a journey of growth for me. I really enjoy writing about spiritual things, having deep spiritual conversations with people, being in fellowship with other Christians, studying the Bible with friends, and listening to a lot of Christian music and podcasts. Even though I have learned a lot throughout the past few years, I will never reach the end of all there is to know about God and His Word. Everyone else is in the same boat. I want to always have a deep craving for Jesus and His Word. The Word of God has the power to completely and drastically change the course of people's lives. Amazing and miraculous things can happen when we allow God to work in and through our lives. God is a God of miracles, second chances, healing, and love. Even when things don't go the way we planned, God is still so good and He is still so worthy of all praise and trust. I love moments when I have spiritual revelations. Those moments are so good and I really enjoy them. For those who know what Awana is, I went through the whole program from about 3 years old to 12th grade. I highly recommend it. It is an incredible ministry. For those who don't know what Awana is, we play games, have a Bible lesson, memorize and recite verses, and learn about God. It is so fun. I would definitely encourage anyone looking for a program like that to find a local church near you that has Awana for your kids, grandkids, nieces, nephews, or friends. Here are the discussion questions. 1. If you are a Christian, what do you feel is one of the things that impacted your spiritual walk the most? I feel like one of the things that has impacted me most as a Christian has been being able to talk to some people about deep things. 2. Who has had the biggest positive impact on your walk with God? To be honest, there are several people who have positively impacted my walk with God. To name just a few, I think I would have to say my grandparents, my leaders in a small group I was in for a couple of years, and a few various friends. 3. Who is one person you think would benefit from hearing this podcast? I hope that anyone who is looking for a different perspective on spiritual things will find it. I won't necessarily always talk about spiritual things on this podcast, but I want to as much as I can. 4. Who is one person you think would benefit from hearing this episode and why? I hope that anyone who's looking for encouragement on their own spiritual journey will find it. Well, we all need community, so having a different perspective may be helpful. 5. What is your favorite Bible verse or story and why? I'm not really sure what my favorite verse is. I have a lot of favorites, so it's hard to pick just one. I'm not really sure what my favorite Bible story is either, but I like the story of how Peter, one of Jesus' 12 disciples, walked on the water with Jesus in Matthew 14:22-33, because Peter showed great trust in God to help him stay on top of the water. I want to have great trust in God like Peter when I go through trials. 6. How have you noticed God speaking to you lately? I feel like God speaks to me through music and other people sometimes, but also through a lot of sermons too. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you liked today's episode, please follow my podcast, leave a comment and/or review, and tell your friends. Thank you for listening. I hope you tune in next time for the second episode. Again, I would love to hear answers to the discussion questions. If you are interested in knowing more about becoming a Christian, if you'd like someone to talk to, if you have topic ideas, or if you have a review and/or comments, you can email me at corachin@mailbox.org, send me a message on my podcast Facebook page, or a voice message by clicking the link in the show notes. That's all from me for today. I will see you in the next episode.